it's like I want to kind of not return the favor, but
Right.
like to follow in their footsteps for sure.
And I think that's so, correlative to the Great Commission and to the gospel in terms of you're going to go out and you're going to make disciples, not only disciples of Christ, but in the process of telling the gospel, you have this amazing medium in chemical engineering or English where you can point to Christ or archetypes or just the puzzle, again, how everything fits together and see there is something divine about how everything works. There is something divine about how all of these pieces mesh together in a way that we can actually understand, interpret, and like extrapolate information from. You have the ability to pull these kids alongside you if you do happen to like go into teaching and say, here is the information that you're going to need for this test or for this exam. But here's also the information behind that information, i.e., here is God making this information possible or revealing this information to us,
Right.
And it's amazing to think that there is so much attached to the gospel that the gospel is not, it is a very simple gospel. And it's very bare bones in that it's Christ died and came back and he resurrected and he's, defeated death. That's like the bare bones gospel. But along with that is so much more. And there's so many different lenses and facets of Christ where he literally is popping up in every single vocation. And I think it's up to us as Christians pursuing these different avenues to find Christ within that vocation.
Yeah, absolutely.
As we've been talking about, and to not only find him there, but expose him to the rest of the world. So when people ask you, what do? You don't just say, oh, I teach chemical engineering. I can say, or you can say, I teach and I disciple and I'm making disciples. And, that might not look like the way that churches make disciples and like do these classes or these programs, or you have these, meetings at Starbucks for an hour and you talk about your spiritual walk. But you have a teacher and you have students and you have this constant interaction, this relationship with them. I can't think of anybody that you spend more time with on a daily basis than teachers and students.
Exactly.
Especially like coming through, elementary school, middle school, high school, you spend more time probably with your teachers than you do with your parents in a way,
absolutely.
which is huge. And I think the more that those teachers reflect the image of Christ and project the image of Christ and try to impart that image upon the students, whether or not the students receive that, you can sow it among thorns and they just don't, want to receive it at all. That's fine.
Yeah.
But at least having that heart to build up, to bear fruit, I think is really, really big. And I've seen that a lot in you, not only just in chemical engineering, but also in Flick, which you're involved in, which I definitely want to talk about in a minute. But
Sure.
also, and what's immediately coming to mind is with the freshman Bible study that you lead, that I kind of sit in on because I like the conversation. But
Yeah.
but it's been amazing to watch you really take the reins in those discussions, and not in this super totalitarian way, but in a loving way where you are encouraging people and inviting people into the conversation to say, hey, how is Christ working in your week? Most recently, we've been doing this more missional community stuff where we're just talking about life and talking about Jesus and hoping that like the Venn diagram between those two things like comes closer and closer, together and encompasses both circles. So I could talk about that, but I wanted to let you talk about that and kind of give your thoughts on freshman Bible study and your experience with that.
Sure.